This is Michael Mixer. Today I will do an album review on The Big Kaboom by Jello Biafra. The Big Kaboom was recorded live in Madison, Wisconsin back in November 2001 at the University of Wisconsin. This album was also released in 2012. Particularly, The Big Kaboom starts off with Jello Biafra discussing his views on the terrorist attacks of September 11, 2001, his views on the ugly aftermath since then, and the perpetual war on terror. Jello Biafra also discusses historical events that may have contributed to the tragedy along with the repercussions. Jello Biafra is still hungry for ideas due to his Green Party ideology. The Big Kaboom is still relevant today. It's basically Bush propaganda and Taliban propaganda, and some leftivists, of course, but there's a lot of propaganda in here, and Jello Biafra goes nuts all over this spoken word album. But the other reason I gave this album 1 out of 5 stars is because this is all rehashed crap. The whole album is all on one track, and you can't skip any of it, meaning that it's literally burned all onto one track. But other than that, I'm going to show you guys later on in the video what's inside the album. I'm going to turn this over. And this was recorded in 2001 during the Bush regime, as Jello Biafra put it, of course. But I'm going to zoom in so you all can see the print. Sorry about the glare. I know it's pretty fucking annoying. And this is AK Press, of course. And at the time, AK Press had a deal with Alternative Tentacles, I believe. And here's how you know that an Alternative Tentacles release is legit. If it doesn't say virus 2760D, for example, then it's not legit. Or if it has a weird symbol, it's not legit either. So basically this album is legit because I always try to buy legit albums. Sometimes I get fooled, sometimes I don't, but it's really rare that I do. But this is not one of those cases, of course. And over here, for some strange reason, there's a second barcode on the right side of the album, which is an IBSN number. IBSNs are always on books for some people who didn't know. But IBSNs always have a right pointing less than, I think, sign, I believe. But they don't always have it, I don't think. Sometimes it's less than or greater than, but IBSNs are usually legit. The reason why I said that is because it's harder to forge a book. It's harder to make a counterfeit bootleg book than it is to make a DVD, than it is to make a bootleg DVD, CD, or cassette, or vinyl. Yeah, books are a lot harder to make than all of those of what I just listed. That's why it's not easy to make a counterfeit book. With that said, I'm gonna zoom in over here, and it said, and here is a propaganda sign, which is a parody of Got Milk, and it says Got War. Pretty clever, huh? And here's Uncle Sam, I believe. Oh wait, hold on a sec. That's not Uncle Sam. It's Osama bin Laden disguised as Uncle Sam, I believe. I can't really tell. Sorry for the dark print. I can't fix that. America, business as usual. What a surprise. Yeah, what a surprise. America, business as usual. And this was recorded during the Spitfire tour that he was on in November of 2001. Yeah, this was during the Bush regime again. This was in Madison, Wisconsin, at the University of Wisconsin. Now I'm going to open the album. Hopefully Alternative Tentacles won't mind if I do this. Sorry about the glare. I'm gonna get rid of that fucking thing. I just wish the politicians would get a blowtorch up the ass and feel the same pain that we're feeling, cause boy do they need it. Over here is a photo of George W. Bush and Newt Gingrich, I believe. So I'm gonna open this up, give me a second. I'll get that panel later, don't worry, I'll be last. It's basically a 12-page fold-out of Taliban propaganda, because again, this was during the Bush regime, as Jello Biafra put it. I don't have a tripod for this camera yet, so bear with me here. What we have right here is the original The Coup album that was supposed to be released in July of 2001, but never was due to political reasons, of course. As you see here, they have a picture of World Trade Center is being bombed while they were banging drumsticks, I believe. Let me put the camera down. Maybe y'all can see it. There we go. Yeah, there's a parental advisory. I think that was supposed to be the original edition, but it got released in October of 2001. It got pushed forward to that date, of course, but other than that, let's see what else is here. No surprise there. It says, Americans, think about why you're hated all over the world. Well, I can think of a lot of reasons, but it's going to be too long for this video, of course. You all know the biz. Of course, Bush was a cheerleader for war. He didn't try to stop this shit from happening, which is pretty fucked up if you ask me. Here is what both sides want. You see, both George W. Bush and both Osama bin Laden have a goal in common. They both want war and they were both unelected. So that's why. That's why people hate us so much. And them, of course. Let's see what else is here. There's a picture of Garfield. I don't know what the heck he's doing in here. Yeah, Teletubby is pretty fucking hilarious, as I said before. Right here is the bombing done to the World Trade Center. These are just various news clippings. Some of them have sources, some of them don't. I can't really say. Maybe there's a list of it somewhere here on this album, but I don't think there is. Let me open this out. Let me put this on. Afghan TV, what does it say? Let me zoom out a bit, sorry about that, y'all. Afghan Kids TV Shock. And there's a lot about Donald Rumsfeld. I mean, there's a lot about Donald Rumsfeld in here, of course. He's pretty dumb at times. Because he didn't have the balls to stop George W. Bush. I mean, they had the balls, they just didn't want to. Oh yeah, hilarious. The original Mr. Bin Laden. That's pretty sure to upset them and piss them off. Stop, what would Jesus do? Yeah, who cares what Jesus would do? But other than that, yeah. Apparently Bin Laden had a business link with President Bush, but people were too blind to see that at the time. And here we have the original plane crash picture. It was a CNN exclusive right here. Got the permission to do that. I guess CNN didn't really give a fuck about fair use and copyright, but then again, Jello Biafra is known for pulling this shit. Just let me turn this over so you guys can see the other side. Let me zoom out a bit. Yeah, the Bush family has screwed Texas over plenty of times. They screwed Texas over more than 6 times, I believe, but I can't really say that because I wasn't alive during the time of the first Bush regime, of course. But other than that, yeah. Shop for victory. Bear with me here, people. I don't have a tripod for this camera yet. Yeah, apparently in Afghanistan they grow opium for some weird reason, which is odd because most of it's a desert, freaking desert. And of course there's a lot of people who want Osama bin Laden dead or alive, but he's already dead, ironically. Jello Biafra was a prophet before his time. Jello Biafra, he was ahead of his time. He still is. I don't care what anyone says. And there's the X-ray vision goggles that Jello Biafra is known for. That's a pretty badass gun right there. And of course, there's people who are gun crazy and crazy about gun politics. And to sum it all up, it's gun crazy politics, of course. Some of it is a bit off topic, of course, which Jello Biafra is known for at times. He does have his humorous side, of course. He showcases some of his patriotism should not be used as a means of propaganda for winning other countries for oil. This right here is a form of neo-Nazi censorship, similar to the Nazi regime of Germany in World War II and World War I. An example of anti-Semitism in the Islamic religion.
Wouldn't it be far better for our homeland if we put that kind of thought and energy into shortening the war on terrorism and pulling the plug before we invade Iraq and make the stupidest foreign policy mistake of our entire lifetimes in the process, burning every bridge we have over there and planting the seeds for that many more Osama bin Ladens and suicide bombers and all? I know right now there's a lot of bullying going on, but look how many people showed up at the first organized anti-war protest in San Francisco. We're almost at anti-Gulf War numbers already. That's a good sign. It kind of feels, though, like those voices in the wilderness in 1964 after the Gulf of Tonkin resolution went through Congress at a time when people really were scared of communism because we'd just gone through the Cuban Missile Crisis, saying, wait a minute, the Vietnam War is wrong, it should stop, we should get out of there now. Their reward was to be beaten, fired, called communists, traitors, peaceniks, pinkos, faggots. But in the long run, against incredible odds, the whole military-industrial complex and the hierarchies of both the Democratic and Republican parties aiming at the American people with both barrels, if that sounds familiar. The American people rose up and stopped the Vietnam War. We've done it once, we can do it again. One veteran of the anti-war movement I know said in his estimation, there were only 3,000 to 5,000 full-time shock troops and organizers fighting against the Vietnam War. It wasn't a 51% majority of a country of 220 million people, but it got the job done. We can do it again. We did it a lot quicker in the first Gulf War, too, didn't we? That one didn't even last a month before King George I pulled the plug on Gulf War #1 and stopped the troops at the Iraqi-Kuwaiti border, wouldn't let them go any further, even though General Schwarzkopf and Cheney and the rest of them were just chomping at the bit to go into Iraq and do a General Sherman job on Basra and destroy Baghdad and hopefully kill enough people that Saddam Hussein just might be one of them. But we didn't go that far. Why? Because the opposition got so intense and so fierce and so big so fast. Not just in San Francisco, but in small-town America, small-town Canada, Britain, France, Germany, Western Europe, you name it. There were protests in the streets, even in dictatorships like Syria, Algeria, Egypt, even though the corporate media hype was saying 90% of Americans love the Gulf War and love King George I. They knew it wasn't true, and they damn well better shut it down before things get any worse. Plus, Bush I had promised other people who'd entered into that alliance with him, not just the Arabian oil sheiks, but Britain and France and Germany and the rest, that we wouldn't go past the Kuwaiti-Iraqi border. The purpose was not to overthrow Saddam Hussein, it was to get Iraqi troops out of Kuwait. And they held him to that promise. I'm sure John Major in Britain wouldn't have cared at all, although Saddam Hussein had a great quote right around the time of the Gulf War, accusing Margaret Thatcher of vomiting poison like a spotted serpent. I don't know whether he really said that or not, but it's the best description of Thatcher I've ever heard. But even if John Major or Helmut Kohl in Germany, they wouldn't have cared if Bush broke his promise and went in and went nuts in Iraq, but they knew that their people did care. Their people held their leaders to holding Bush from doing any more damage than he already did. So if you know people overseas, email them, write them, talk to them, however you like to communicate. Let them know how important it is they keep the pressure on their leaders not to fall in with King George II in a disaster into Iraq. Even Tony Blair, who's Bush's big cheerleader for the war on terrorism so far, he seems to think he's Winston Churchill while King George thinks he's John Wayne. Urge people in other countries to save America from America and thus save the rest of the world as well. They already know who we are, TIPS program or not, so don't get quiet, get louder and louder and louder.
Please be sure to remember to get out there and vote before it's too late.